It don't really matter to me, Sejohn. Everybody got to fight to be free. Say you don't have to live like a refugee.
You don't have to live like a refugee.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Sejohn Sarowick. And if we are singing Refugee by Tom Petty, it can only mean one thing.
Can it?
I don't know. I guess maybe it's weird. Like, continuity is a weird thing, especially in a
Yeah.
friendship.
Yeah.
But I cannot think about the Patriots in the Super Bowl without thinking of Refugee by Tom Petty. And maybe that's because a story that we've definitely told before on the show,
Yes.
the
Yes.
year of the perfect season, we watched the first two quarters at my house and then watched Tom Petty perform, R.I.P.T.P., and then the whole drive into Providence for a lavish Super Bowl party, we sang at the top of our lungs Refugee by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot have the Patriots go to a Super Bowl without thinking about that night. And especially when I'm going to talk to you about it. A little bit behind the scenes and curtains, it is 10 o'clock on Monday. Usually this is recorded and out to you, so sorry for the delay, but I couldn't record an episode where we didn't address the Super Bowl.
Right.
Because...
And not a week later, it had to be the right day.
Yeah, it had to. I'm sorry, it had to be the right day.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's this weird cornerstone of yours and mine's friendship.
Mm-hmm.
In like the weirdest way possible. And it's a weird cornerstone of this show because the Say Report, this is our 3rd January. It's also the third time the Patriots have been to the Super Bowl. I don't want to say that our podcast is responsible for that.
But we
so
are
I'll
a
let
suspicious
Sejohn.
I am just gonna say we're from New England. Suspicion reigns supreme, especially when it comes to our sports teams. I'm not gonna hide that. I don't know, man. But I gotta tell you though, Devin. As much as this is our 3rd time talking about the Patriots in the Super Bowl, I I I got nothing.
Yeah. My biggest, first of all, congratulations to the New England Patriots.
We know you're listening.
For becoming the only the second team in the NFL to win 6 Super Bowls.
Yep.
But really, the fact that Bill Belichick and Tom Brady have been the duo to do it 6 times now. The closest duo to do it is 4. So now they have really lifted themselves up to that echelon. And it's hard not to live in New England or to be from New England and not feel a sense of pride at what the Patriots are, especially considering before 2001, we would get to the Super Bowl and we would beef it fucking hard.
Yeah, we'd fall on our fists. Yes. The Pats were not the dynasty before 2001. Like let's just put that out there. Like and it's really weird to me how many people around here talk about the Patriots, not being in New England. So of course everybody out here talks about the Patriots as being the evil empire, but like they weren't my whole life, and for a lot of the people out here, they weren't their whole lives either. It's only something that's come up really in the last decade that they've just been like, I'm gonna hate this team for no reason. So it's real weird being out here dealing with this right now because basically everybody's feeling out here is, of course they won. The end. And it's no fun. I gotta get home.
Yeah, you do have to get home because friggin' duck boat parade tomorrow. Like, it was so good when they're like, after they won, and Tom Brady's like, I think there's probably going to be a parade Tuesday morning. Like, dude, it's happening. We know it's happening. Like you probably it could be
Probably.
6 feet of snow, negative like Kelvin level temperatures, and we're gonna have that duck boat parade because we won. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
but you're right, it is crazy. First of all, though, I understand the fatigue from non-Patriots fans. I honestly do, because especially this season, especially them going up against the Rams, I don't want
Mhm.
to discount what the Rams accomplished. Like, they definitely got to the Super Bowl. They had a hell of a season. And Sean McVay, he's my age. Literally, Sean McVay and I are the same age. I think he is like 6 days younger than me. And their
Yeah.
quarterback is Dale's age. Essentially, it's as if I coached Dale in the Super Bowl. Is what the LA Rams had. I mean, obviously, ability and things are different, but like just to like
Are
put
they
it into
though?
context, it's just one of those weird things where it's like you don't want to discount what they did, and I think that I honestly think that if they learned from this season, if they were holding clipboards and not trying to like hold the world on their shoulders, the Rams could be a force to be reckoned with going forward.
Yeah.
And that would be great, right? Wouldn't that be great for Los Angeles? Because I think they need a win right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, well, look, I mean, like there is just a lot around the Rams this year that I think kind of got lost in the shuffle because they were going up against the Patriots. Like I think that a lot of the people that were like, we've really got to make sure that again out here, a lot of these people that were like, we really got to root for any team but the Patriots. They all seem to quickly forget how the business side of things for the Rams, and the players are not at fault for any of this. So like, I'm not calling the team out for this, but the NFL and the management behind the Rams and the way that they screwed over one city and ripped them out of a city and then put them into a city that wasn't asking for them is a story that should be remembered. Like, this was a team that in their first season, they got to the Super Bowl. This should have been like a redemption story for them, even if they didn't win. The idea that they were in this city where everybody was like, what the hell is happening with this team? Like, this should have been a story for people to rally behind. And you didn't even really see that this year. Like, that's the thing that gets me is like, you got to this Super Bowl game and you had Patriots fans who were excited and happy. So like, a third of this country just like real happy for that. And then like you got two-thirds of this country who just didn't seem to care. And that sucks because you're right. Like the Rams like they got there. They got to the Super Bowl. Some people are of the opinion that there was a little bit of like mischief going on, as there always seems to be nowadays with like the calls and
I
shit
mean,
in the Saints
it is
games.
the
And
biggest non-call in the history of the NFL.
yeah,
If we're
yeah,
going to be hyperbolic about something regarding like this championship season of the NFL this year, that not being called as pass interference or head to head
hmm
in the era of the no fun league, in the era where player safety is going to be our paramount, the fact that that was not a penalty complete is something that people should be upset about.
yeah,
But there's another thing though, and it's what we saw on display in the game last night, and that
hmm
is the Saints had to out defend the
the rant,
Rams,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they were unable to do that.
I
Right?
see where you're going.
It like the Rams defense was an incredible defense, and that it also seems to be what is being forgotten in the wake of Super Bowl 53, because everybody is talking about how boring that game was and how nothing happened. Like
Because people don't watch for defensive plays, man. Like that's why, right?
it's
Right?
100% true. As someone who grew up playing defense on the hockey teams that I played on, I was a defender, and
hmm
that didn't matter, right? Like my stats were pretty high for what I did, but I wasn't scoring goals. I wasn't putting points up on the board. So
hmm
so those are the people that everybody knew. Those are the guys that like were getting panties thrown at them on the ice.
Right.
Like oh, I can dig and I can clear, and like I'm willing to take a hit from the from the other team. Like, but no one cares about that because end of the day, I maybe scored 1 goal this season from a lucky slap shot.
Right. Yeah, man. Nobody likes a defensive play. Like that's not what people come to watch for. I think it's funny enough. Like I think it's part of the reason why so many people in this country have a hard time nowadays with baseball. Is because baseball is such a defensive game. Every fucking move is like 9 defensive players versus 1 offensive player, right?
Yeah.
Like yeah, so like I think that's part of the reason why people have a hard time getting into baseball and talk about it being a boring game where they feel it goes nowhere because people don't watch for defensive play. People don't watch for defensive game. And so like we needed to talk about I think the coolest stat ever from this Super Bowl. This is the lowest combined score of a Super Bowl ever.
And that's
that's insane. Like that means this was an entirely defensive game because it's not that bad offense. It's not that there was bad offensive plays being done out there. Like there was yardage taken from both teams. Like they moved across that field. They just could not move it far enough.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And I think that's why, I mean, I've been watching all the sports shows and it was Around the Horn and Tony Reali asked, does this go down as the worst Super Bowl in the history of Super Bowls? And it was a unified no. What are you, crazy? Because at the end of the day, yes, people are not excited the same way they're excited about like high scoring games by really good defense. But with 9 minutes left in the game, the score was tied.
Mm-hmm.
Like 9 minutes left in the game, and it's like it's still anybody's game. How are you not sitting on the edge of your seat waiting to see who actually draws enough blood to end this thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I was into this game the whole time because it just seemed like, when is something going to happen? When are they going to figure out? When is one offense going to figure out the other team's defense so that like the game can start? And just seeing how the defenses reacted to everything the offense threw at them, it was awesome. Like I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And but the other problem is, I think in a lot of ways, because of that Rams story that we alluded to, everybody who like says I root for 2 teams, my team and whoever beats the Patriots, right? That old chestnut. It's like the Rams were not a team that people wanted to root for.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. Like I know people who are like, I don't want to watch the Rams lose to the Patriots. I'll just not watch the game. It's like, oh, okay, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. I mean, the NFL did themselves no favors this season, like plain and simple. I think that if anybody has any beef with this Super Bowl and the way that it played out and any of the issues that they did have with it, I think can all point back to the NFL, to Goodell and all that shit, man. Like like you said, like between the fact that this is the first season where we saw perhaps an overextension of rules in some places and then complete ignorance of the rules in others. It was just all over the place. Like people just couldn't get their bearings this year. Why were certain calls being thrown at some teams nonstop? And and I'll admit it, like the Patriots, there were a few times this year where the Patriots got away with things that were clearly in retrospect things that other teams were not getting away with, right? But it was all around the horn. Like it was all over the place. It wasn't just the Patriots. It's just that those are the ones to point to because they're the ones that end up winning, right? But like it was happening all over the NFL this year, and like it's just ridiculous. Like what rules are being followed? It's just not constant, right? And so people just lost a lot of faith in, I think, the NFL this year. And I know that a lot of people are going to point at the Patriots and the Rams.
NFL, the faith in the NFL was already at an all-time low in the wake of how they responded to Colin Kaepernick and his protests and just what the NFL has been doing over the last 3-4 years as an organization. Exactly. So you're not wrong, but then like when the very fabric of what the game is based on, right? These rules and what they're going to stand behind is like player safety and this and that. And a lot of the stuff with the Patriots, right? And we are Patriot fans. I think that if we have said that enough times, but Tom Brady did get preferential treatment if like there were times where it's like, oh, they breathed on Tom Brady and that was a penalty, but
Yeah.
like you have a more like aggressive offensive quarterback who's actually running the ball and not just, throwing or handing it off. And that guy, like, they'd have to literally hit him with an 18-wheeler for a flag to get thrown.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
double standards all around the league where it's like, well, if he's putting himself into those situations, we can't be calling every time that there's a penalty. And it's like, no, but you have to, so that like we can identify that maybe these rules are a little too stringent for a physical game like football.
Or we need to admit across the board that football has been doing this kind of damage all along. That's the other thing, is they're in the middle of all of this and we're still debating whether or not this kind of is the way the game should be played or not. They need to make some hard and fast decisions. I'm not even putting my foot down one way or the other and saying whether or not the rules are too stringent or not anymore. My thing is, if you're going to say that this has to be the rule for this kind of safety, then apply the damn rule. The end. Like, right?
I agree. And you're not wrong, right? If you're going to say this is the rule, it has to be the rule. And that is why that pass interference thing bothered me, because it was a clear head-to-head contact. And, like, that movie Concussion exists.
Yup.
Right?
Yeah.
So even
man.
if you weren't aware of all the stuff that was happening anyway, right? And I think back to that and just how crazy, like, my parents were like, no, Devon's not playing football. We're not going to let him play football, but he can play hockey. And, like, knock wood, I have never gotten a concussion, right? I have taken some heavy hits. I lost my helmet like in a couple of championship games where like I would take a hit and I would lose my helmet and I would keep playing, and like that's dangerous. And they had to modify the rules of the league that I played in growing up to like, if you lose your helmet, you need to recover your helmet. And that was me. That was because of me, because I wouldn't go recover my helmet. And it's like, you know what? Maybe I'd go recover my helmet once there's a dead puck. But, like, it's the championship. I'm not going to, like, stop what I'm doing to get my helmet. I need to get the puck and get it out of my zone. Like,
yeah.
Like, that's how you play. Like, that's what competitive nature is. But above all, like, with that no call and with all this, a lot of the talk is about instant replay for everything.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a mistake.
Of course it would. Games are already being called boring and going nowhere. Imagine if you introduced stopping every play so that they could review for 40 seconds.
Well, like, also, if you look at the actual game from last night, there was that catch where it's real, on the fence whether or not that Ram was inbounds when he made that catch.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing about football where, like, you only have until the start of the next play to challenge that.
Yep.
And they played that perfect. They lined up as fast as they could and got a playoff so that even if Belichick was thinking about throwing his challenge flag.
Yep.
No, well, you missed your opportunity there.
Well,
like,
it's part of the metagame, right?
Exactly. And that's the thing. If they are stopping after every play to review that play, one of my favorite parts about football since they've added that challenge just is erased.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know. It's just, I love the sport. There's nothing like sitting down on a Sunday, having some beer, having some chicken wings, and just like spending time with people who care about the game.
Yep.
But I don't know. But I'm happy. I'm very happy to again see the Patriots win. I would have loved if the Saints had been there against them because, I spent enough time in New Orleans that I've kind of adopted the Saints because I need an NFC team as well. You can't have just an AFC team. I mean, you can, but like it's boring if you're only watching for one team every week. But yeah, so that's it. And anything you'd like to talk about regarding the game before I move to some other points from it?
No, I got more fun stuff I want to talk about, so let's get to that.
Oh, okay, but not about the game, right?
Nope.
Okay, so quick other things. How'd you feel about the halftime show? Were you one of the people pissed off because SpongeBob didn't show up?
Totally. I think SpongeBob would have been. I think if you had gotten, and this is no fucking joke, if you had gotten Nickelodeon and Universal Studios in on just designing just a goofy ass, costume ridden, ridiculous mess of a halftime show all about SpongeBob, that would have been a hell of a halftime show. I think Adam Levine and Maroon 5 was a waste.
But I will say this: I believe I'm not 100% sure that is the first person to perform at the Super Bowl that I have actually sat down and had a real life conversation with. I think that I am officially 1 degree of Kevin Bacon removed from somebody who has performed at the Super Bowl now. So that
Awesome.
was a fun moment, being like, "Oh shit, Maroon 5. Yeah, they were cool that one time."
Well, right, and that's what I mean. Maroon 5 15 years ago would have been a great poll. Maroon 5 now is just somebody keeps calling them Adam and the Levines, and my hat's off to them because that's pretty much what they, yeah, that's my feelings about that halftime show. And I would have, I'm not kidding, I would have enjoyed the hell out of just some ridiculous SpongeBobness.
You know what? It was 2004. This is the best fucking halftime show ever. Right?
Yep.
Because all those songs about Jane songs that they did are new. And freaking Big Boy does his big song off a speaker box.
Yep.
Like it's also weird that Andre 3000 wasn't there in some capacity.
2004, you would have had that.
Yeah.
You know?
And they probably would have played up the whole Love Below speaker box split with the stage design.
Yep.
And I don't know, Andre 3000, he's still repping Atlanta in some way, shape, or form, right?
Oh yeah, hell yeah. All day, every day.
Yeah, it's weird that it was just Big Boy and not Outkast. And Travis Scott, I had not heard about him before yesterday. So I and now I feel like he's everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know, that was strange. But here's the other one last complaint. I feel like I missed out on commercials. I feel like people are talking about an Endgame trailer that I didn't see. I feel like people are talking about...
They're not. They're talking about that 30-second one that you did see. That's the thing, is the Super Bowl ads this year were some of the shortest ads I've ever seen. They had to have been. I don't have those stats in front of me, but man, it felt like every single one of them was 30 seconds long. I think the longest one I saw was that M&M's commercial with Christina Applegate, and my TV fritzed in the middle of it. So
bad. It's I get what you're doing. Please end this commercial. Yeah. No, I just feel like I was excited for Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and the only one that I saw was the red spot. But apparently they had 5 that played during the game. And I just missed the other 4? I didn't move from my chair.
Weird.
Yeah. So
yeah, man. I'm right there with you. It felt like the commercials just were kind of nothing this year. The only one I really had any a memory of was the Washington Post one, and I don't know how I feel about it. I am feeling really weird about it.
You know what? The thing that I felt weird about it was it's fucking insane that occurred, right? 54 journalists in America. That is something that we need to remember and think about. But then the thing about it that sticks in my mind more is that they had Tom Hanks doing the narrative. He was the narrator. And I'm
I don't know, if anything, that made the most sense out of anything, because I almost bet you that he probably didn't even get paid for it. That they spent all that money on that spot to get it up there. I guarantee he did it for no pay.
I believe that he did it for no pay too, but it reminded me of the movie The Post. And that's the reason why. And then I'm but I didn't think that movie was very good. I think that movie...
It was an Oscar-nominated movie, wasn't it?
Yes, that doesn't mean anything, right?
Well, no, I'm just saying... I'm saying in the grand scheme of things, we may not have enjoyed that movie, because I'm right there with you. It's not. I didn't think it was a very memorable, and I love those kinds of movies. I love
those kinds of movies. I love the cast. It's just that
you're talking about
they squandered their opportunity.
Yeah.
They squandered that opportunity, and then I'm why are you reminding me about this squandered opportunity? And if it had been Meryl Streep's voice, maybe I'd feel differently, because at least she was still part of that squandered opportunity, but she was a bigger part of it, and she is a bigger part. But it also speaks to other double standards that are going on in this country. And I think, everybody's very clever for mentioning that Adam Levine can show his nipples, but Janet Jackson couldn't show hers. But like, that's what Free the Nipple is about. This fight has been going on for literal years.
Yeah.
Like there's not a new double standard that like
Fucking
Twitter
decades at this
fell
point.
upon. What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's decades at this point.
It's
I mean,
at
like, you're
least a
talking about lawsuits
decade,
that
right?
go back to the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Like, well, I mean, if you're talking about like the lawsuits in New York of literally like, hey, I'm suing because guys can walk around and I can't. There are records of those kinds of
Going
lawsuits
back to
dating
the
back.
70s. You're correct.
Yeah. So like, yes. Of course, but every generation has to feel like they've discovered it and then that they're making it their fight, right? I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. That's what it is. The commercials, all they did was just confound me.
And they continue to confound me, as well as everybody saying that it was a boring Super Bowl this year, because like I don't know how, and the weird thing is that it's not just like people who only watch the Super Bowl. There are legitimate like sports personalities who are like, this was a boring game, and it's like, well, I understand where you're coming from too, because like if sports are going to be this boring, what is your job? Right? Like it's your livelihood to report on this stuff, and if it's boring and people aren't watching, they're certainly not going to watch you analyze it.
Right.
All right, so that's it. I think again, congratulations to the Patriots, congratulations to the Rams. Like, hell of a game. You should be very proud, and apparently new football starts this weekend. Like this weird other league of football that I don't know enough about to actually talk about. So on to
the XFL? They're bringing the XFL back?
It's like the XFL, but it's in real stadiums. I don't know. My father was trying to explain it to me last night, but he was like half asleep because the game was ended. So we'll have to research it. And like, I'm going to watch it, right? There's going to be football next weekend. I'm going to watch it. I watched the XFL, and that's not because I like wrestling. It's because I like football. So it should be exciting. Okay, so if you listen to this show for not football, congratulations for making it to the part where we talk about other things.
Well, welcome to the show. If you fast forward into this. Yeah, man, I got to talk about some things, because guess what I did last week?
What'd you do last week?
I went to Sundance.
You went to Sundance? Oh, you're in Utah. That's fucking cool. It makes perfect sense. Like I can't be flabbergasted by that.
So let me break it down a little bit just to explain exactly what happens, because I wasn't even aware of how like massive and really huge this whole process is. So Park City, Utah, which is where they hold the actual festival, basically shuts down. Like, it becomes walking traffic only for like 2 weeks. It is insane. People that live in Park City will straight up Airbnb their house and move out of town for 2 weeks because it's just not worth it, right? So that's the kind of festival that we're talking about. It's so big, in fact, that it actually has now, over the last few years, I mean, probably longer than a few years, but has leaked out of Park City and into Salt Lake City and even all the way up to Ogden. And anybody around here knows that that's like insane. It's like 2 hours away from Park City to go see more Sundance movies. So that is like the size of this thing. It takes up, in Utah, which is a pretty big empty place, it just fills it for just 2 weeks, right? So we got the opportunity. Now that we live out here and we're Utah residents, like we get all sorts of like notice and opportunity about shows and things to go to. Well, we decided, like, we live, just outside the city, like we're 15 minutes from downtown. So like, let's go check a couple of things out. And Tess and I just went through, and immediately, like, things were selling out left and right, and we couldn't get to anything, right? But we found actually 3 movies, but we didn't know if 3 was gonna like push it for us this year. But next year, now I'm like, no, we got to go to 1 every day. So like, I know for the future. But we found 2 movies this week that we decided to go to. We bookended the week, and we went to this little family dramedy earlier in the week, and then we went to Blumhouse's like their follow up to Get Out. They're like,
Us? You saw fucking Us?
No, not Jordan Peele's follow-up.
Oh, okay.
Blumhouse. It's like,
I thought that
it's
Blumhouse was
so,
part of it. Was part of Us.
They probably are, but
okay.
I don't think Us. I don't think Us came to Sundance like Get Out did, because the slot that we saw this film called Relive in was essentially the same slot that they gave to that, and Relive was amazing, but like, I don't even know where to start. So we went to the one earlier in the week, and it was this family dramedy called Before You Know It, right? And it was this beautiful film, first time director. It's actually a pair of writers, these two women that have known each other for over a decade, wrote this film, and the two of them star in it as these two sisters that end up inheriting a theater through like some pretty sad events, right? And it's all about them trying to like reconcile with their family and what they're going to do with their lives now that they have this place. And it was amazing. It was maybe the most Sundance film I could have gone to as my first Sundance film of all time, and I'm so happy. I smiled the whole time. I laughed. I cried. Like everything that you could do with a movie. Like it was so cliche, but to the point where like it was cathartically cliche. Like it was beautiful. And so when it comes out wide release, because it's gonna have to. Mandy Patinkin is one of the big stars in it. It's got some cameos from Mike Coulter and Alec Baldwin. But then your two leads are these two up and comers that have not done much of anything besides like indie film stuff till now, right? I mean, this was a Sundance film. It came out of the Sundance Film School. Like these two have just come out of nowhere, and they were there, and I got to see them talk about this movie and talk about the process afterwards and all of this. It was this fantastic experience, and I highly recommend it. I mean, it hits all those same spots like Little Miss Sunshine, so like it almost isn't fair that it's come out this late in the game, because I feel like 5 years ago, people would have jumped on this movie because everybody was jumping on the quote unquote indie darling. And this movie is a true indie darling. Like it has all the makings of being that like indie cult favorite that people talk about 15 years from now. Once this woman has made like 3 other movies that have actually won Oscars, people will talk about, yeah, but you know what wasn't fair? That her first movie didn't win an Oscar. Like that's going to be this movie. It's amazing. So I cannot stop recommending it. But there's not too much to talk about with that movie without like giving away some of like the beats and stuff, other than like, family drama, things happen, people are sad, people are happy. It's awesome. Check it out. The one that I got to talk about is I got to talk about Relive, because I wasn't sure what it was when we went into it. I wasn't sure about it for about 20 minutes into it, but holy crap, that movie grabbed me about 20 minutes in and did not let go. So it was a little bit more produced than Before You Know It, because it is Blumhouse behind it, and so it actually did have some money behind it. The main girl in it is Storm Reed, who just hit it big in Wrinkle in Time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she was the lead in that, and so like she's phenomenal as this young girl in it, and then her uncle is this cop, and the whole thing is this sci-fi ghost story-esque thing where she and her family get killed, and him being a cop, he has to start investigating what happened, and then suddenly one night he gets a phone call on his cell phone from her, and it's her from like 3 days before she gets killed. And so it's this whole like back and forth between the two timelines of them trying to like figure out what happens and and can they stop it? Is anything even changeable? If it is changeable, what does that do? And the way that it plays with that whole like back and forth of time is like it's beautifully done because of how much you don't think about it while you're watching it. It's like every good time travel story where if you think about it a little too much, the science starts to fall apart. But it's so good at making you not worry about it because you're just invested in this like paranormal thriller that's going on. Oh my God. It was beautiful. And like I said, it did take about 20 minutes or so for me to really kind of get into it, because they have to set the event up. So quickly you see like these people and then they're dead, and you're like, I don't even care about them yet. Why do I care that they're dead? And then you realize, oh, because I'm actually going to live with these people some more. I just needed to see that. And it's insane, because then you're watching how things change and how things twist and again, there's this beautiful catharsis to the whole thing, because there's these moments where me as an audience member, I was just like, man, I really hope now that I know that this is like the setup, I hope it goes this way. I hope it goes that way. And it does. But it does so in ways that are just so like unexpected. So like you do finally get to these moments that you kind of knew were coming, but the way that you got there was so beautifully constructed that again, you just don't even think about it. And what's awesome about it is the entire time you're not even thinking about this, but it's an entirely African-American production. Unlike something like Get Out, where like the story is inherently about the Black experience, so like you're reminded every step of the way, like this is about what it's like to be an African-American in America. This was very much just a good sci-fi story that, without even thinking about it, every role was just this great black actor. The director is, is African American as well. The writer and all this stuff. I think actually it's the same person. I think it's the same writer director. So like it was like it was almost like the next step from something like Get Out, right? And Blumhouse has been very open, at least at Sundance, and is that this is what they consider to be like the next step for them. You know, you do something like Get Out where you're putting that in everybody's face and you're saying we're doing something that like, you've never done before. And then the next step is to just produce just a good movie that just happens to employ these kinds of actors, these kinds of writers. And so it just completely thrown, because like it wasn't until like an hour and a half into the movie where I was just like, this story could have been anybody. And in fact, I bet you like 10 years ago, you probably would have seen this movie as like a Ridley Scott film with Denzel Washington in it, you know, like that style of movie. But no, instead it's the simple story with these actors that I don't quite recognize, because you know they are coming from a disenfranchised group that does not get much play in front of me, right? So like it was just kind of awesome, because I didn't even think about that until after the movie ended, that was the kind of movie I had just watched. So it was an amazing experience. And for that one, because it was a little bit of a bigger movie, they didn't have the director there. They didn't have any of the cast there, and that's killer, because I would have fucking loved to talk to them about some of the ideas and like where it came from. But it was amazing, because this is the first time I've ever gotten a chance to really take part in something this big in terms of like film. You know, like we've done all sorts of stuff in Rhode Island, and like, you know, you have 48-hour film festivals all over the place. And I've like helped out on movies and worked backstage on movies, but this is the first time that I got to take in like art cinema that was like elevated, you know? It was crazy. It was just awesome.
This is where I'm upset that we're an audio only podcast, because
Yeah.
I didn't say a lot over the last, I'm going to say conservatively 10 minutes, but my face was just so happy for you that you got this experience.
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
you can hear the wonder in your voice at
Yeah.
getting to interact with something like that.
Yeah.
And like it kind of reminds me of when like, and I'm not trying to step on, you win this fight, I know that. But like it reminds me of when I was walking behind John Ratzenberger and did not realize that. So I'm like, why is like the crowd moving so slowly? Like what is happening in front of me? And then friggin' Cliff Clavin turns around and is like, hey, yo, I'm sorry about this. Like, and I'm like, oh no, it's fine, sir. Mr. Ratzenberger, like,
Yeah.
you don't need
Yeah.
to apologize to me. It's just like, it's nice to know why the crowd is stopping, because
Yeah, man.
somehow I have wound up behind you, and you are the biggest thing that has ever happened to the Rhode Island International Film Festival.
Yeah, man. I mean, like I'm standing 60 feet away from this woman that has directed this beautiful film that was just perfection. Like there's no other way to describe it. It is just it is a perfectly made film, and she's poured her heart and soul into it over 10 years of like this idea was just something that they talked about when they first met a decade ago, and then slowly they kind of tweaked it and worked on it to the point where suddenly she's in film school making it, and then here she is premiering it in front of all these people, and everybody in that theater loved it. There was not a dry eye in the house in this beautiful moment with Mandy Patinkin at the end that is just like, again, just perfection. And you know, you have a guy like Mandy Patinkin, like you're not gonna go wrong. He has these beautiful silent moments in the movie, and you're just like, you're perfect. Like, and then on top of that, she drops a laugh on top of you right in the middle of you bawling your eyes out, and you can't help but belly laugh. It hurt to switch so fast, and to see that this girl is in front of you, just being like, thanks for watching my movie, was like surreal. You know, and we had stood in line for like 20 minutes before this movie, because you have to get there 15 minutes before. You have to have a ticket in advance, because if you don't, so many people want to get into these movies that they'll give your ticket away. So like you've got to show up 15 minutes early, and they check you in and they check your bags and stuff. So we're standing out in the bitter cold out in Salt Lake City waiting to get into this little theater, and we walk in, and the theater is just, it was gorgeous. It was like walking into like the theater before the Muppets fix it up. Like that's what it looks like. Like shit is falling off the walls, and like the stage where the like screen is clearly in need of a paint job. Like that's the kind of place where I got to see this movie for the first time. And I don't know where it's gonna go. You know, my hope is that it gets picked up for wide release, but it has to at least get picked up by like Amazon or Netflix to at least be thrown up there as one of their like originals that they throw money at, because like it was just too good to ignore, And knowing that I got to see it with this crowd first, it's not like I ever lost faith in movies. I know that we've talked a lot about how movies have gotten kind of weird for us over the years, but this definitely put me back in that place where I was just like, yeah, this is why I love movies. It's funny because like part of it comes from the fact that I had talked about, we saw Kevin Smith a couple of weeks ago, and him talking about getting started at Sundance, at him being in Park City at some shitty little theater at 11 o'clock on like a Sunday morning. He's like, I don't know why I picked that time to show my movie, but I did. And I think it was a mistake now in retrospect, but then I didn't know what I was doing. And like getting to see that version of Kevin Smith, like now thinking like, oh man, 20 years from now, people are going to be all over this girl, thanking her for like starting their career and seeing where she started. It was heartwarming. And like, and on top of that, like, it was just a good movie, It was awesome. It was a fantastic experience, and I cannot wait to do it next year.
That's awesome, man. I'm super jealous.
Like, yeah.
Like, and I hate that I'm jealous because, like, I'm also so happy that like you got to take advantage of that. But it's like, oh, that's super cool.
Like, yeah, it was really cool. And the fact that everybody out here is so behind it, and like in Utah as a state, like I didn't know what to expect moving out here, and I have not felt out of place being out here, but there has definitely been a sense that like it is a new world, a different world. Getting to see this kind of thing happen here made me realize it's not any different than Rhode Island. It's just that what's surface and what's beneath are different. I just got to dig for the stuff that I've been kind of looking for, but it's there, and that felt really good too.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I don't know. I don't know how to like. I hope that like it's coming across that like this means as much to me, even though I didn't get to experience it. Because like that's so cool that you finally found your like corner of the sky.
Yeah. It's exactly that, man. And the best part is it is something I can share. Like next year, we've got to figure some way to get you out here to see if we can get Zach and Dale to come along too.
Because dude, you need to understand that my mind was already due. My mind was already the second you're like, yeah, it's like, I'm like, yeah. So how am I getting to Utah? The first week
and I mean,
classes.
And the best part about it is like it doesn't really matter what ce you go to with this whole festival. Like
we're gonna find you're surrounded by people who love movies.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And that's like my movie experience this weekend. Short of I watched the Newsies on Broadway because Say Report Jr. did a whole episode about Newsies, and I started listening to it, and then I'm like, shit, I need to watch the Broadway version of Newsies before I continue listening, because these stupid idiots got me interested, and I loved it. I absolutely, as far as I'm concerned, there's one Newsies, and it is the one that is on Broadway. I'm sorry, Christian Bale, but you no longer exist as Jack Kelly.
I like that it at least made it a legitimate movie. Like my big thing about Newsies is I've always been into it ironically. Like I'll be a hipster about it. Like I loved Newsies, but not because I thought it was a good play. But it does seem like this Broadway version has very much legitimized the music and the movie and the story in a way.
It's like the best part of the legitimizing of Newsies is how cliched parts of it have become because it's a musical. And being like, oh, okay, so that beats in there now because it's on Broadway. And it's like that's the only reason why too. Like we didn't need to put that in the movie musical version of this story, but we have to. We have to if we're on Broadway. But then my other cinema experience this weekend was I saw The Kid Who Would Be King.
Yeah. Hey, all right.
Which great film. Like, don't let the fact that it's probably going to be the biggest bomb of 2019 dissuade you from seeing it.
It's a kids movie. It'll have so much play between television and DVD buys and stuff. It'll do
I
fine.
really hope
You
so.
just
I
won't
mean,
ever hear,
like,
you won't ever hear about those numbers, but it'll do
yeah.
fine.
I mean, it's just like, I mean, it's Joe Cornish, right? So, like, Attack the Block is this
Right.
huge movie that people are still talking about, and it kind of bums me out that, you know, Kid Who Would Be King is not going to have that. But then I think about, like, what happened in 2011 with Attack the Block, and since then, like, we have Stranger Things, right? Which
Right.
we have other places to get that 80s kids movie sensibilities. So
Right.
rather than feeling like this is the guy who redefined this genre in modern cinema, it kind of felt like he was chasing the dragon. And that was weird. But
Yeah, I can see
what
that.
I really dug about it was we saw it on a Saturday night, 6 o'clock showing, and that theater was full. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this movie is everybody saying it's garbage and that it's not making back the money and whatever. But like, this is a full theater of people who are spending their Saturday nights watching this film, and
Right.
that really like spoke to me. And like, I love that there was like another older person like around me and Dale's age laughing and getting the references that Dale and I were laughing and getting. So like, it's not just that we're like weirdly into the Arthurian legend. It is like this movie is speaking to people on other levels. And
Yeah. Well, and I wouldn't expect anything less from him. You know, like you said, Attack the Block was just a masterpiece.
yeah, that's the thing. And like, and talking about your experience with Sundance, like that's another thing that I'm thinking about. And then I also think about like other short films that I have seen transformed over the last year, and like Kin, that didn't really need to be a feature length. Like
Right.
they accomplished a full story in the short, and in the feature length just went way off the fucking rails. But then like Smilf, that short film that became a series on Showtime, like that was great. Like, because that short film really kind of felt like a pilot about this single mother and her coming to like the terms about where her life is because she has a child now and what that means. And that
Yeah.
show's been
Well,
great.
yeah. And we talked about this, like even when a movie is bad, like we never want a movie to tank, you know, because like we want movies to keep getting made. Even worse movies that we see out there that we maybe don't personally enjoy ourselves, as much crap as I might give Devon about 50 Shades of Grey and his love of that nonsense, right? Like, it doesn't mean that I don't want those movies to not exist in the world. I would never wish a movie out of existence, right? Like, a movie would have to be heinous for me to ever wish it out of existence. It would have to be offensive on a level that made it pointless to watch. And I don't know if I've ever come across a movie that upsetting to me, you know?
Yeah, like I joke about Message in a Bottle being a terrible film, but like that doesn't change the fact that I'm not upset that I saw it. If I'm
Right.
ever unable to sleep, I throw on Message in a Bottle out like a light. Oh, dude, it's true.
Man.
Like that was a joke when I first saw it, but like it has become the best cure for insomnia
Do you
as I
know?
have gotten older.
Do you know how I realized that I was in a weird, strange world out here, though, for real? It's because people out here legitimately talk about Kevin Costner's Robin Hood as being a classic film.
It is a
And I don't
classic
just mean
film.
like,
You shut
and I
you.
don't mean just like one or two people being like, oh yeah, I liked it, and everybody else being like, okay, weirdo. No, I mean like in three or four different conversations with three or four very different groups of people, that movie has come up, and I've laughed and been like, I love that movie. It's dumb, but I love it. And everybody there looking at me like I had two heads.
Sejohn, you know it's true. Everything they do it for you.
Oh my God.
Dude, I am
Alan
so
Rickman.
happy I was able to pull that out. All I could think
God,
of was the Armageddon song, and I'm like,
no,
that's not. First of all,
that's not the right one.
the
It's not the right
Armageddon
song.
song, and then
It
I
might as well
Want
be,
You
but
Back from the Backstreet Boys. And I'm like,
oh
that's
God.
also not the Bryan Adams song from Robin Hood. What are you doing here, Backstreet Boys? Get out of my head.
Oh man. Oh God. Yeah. No, I mean, like I was saying, man, like with all of this entertainment stuff, movies, sports, video games, all of this shit that we talk about, like I hope that we make it pretty clear that even when we don't enjoy something, it's not like we don't want it to be a thing in the world. Because the thing is no matter what, for everything we don't enjoy, there's 10 people out there that do enjoy it, right? Like, like that's true of all of this shit.
It's very true. And I'd like to think that over the course of this show, people do understand that we celebrate entertainment in all of its various forms,
At the
regardless
very
of if
least.
it's for us or not. And that actually, I'm going to use it as a segue to talk about something else that I have to talk about. I don't even
Do it.
care. And that is Resident Evil.
Yes.
Because
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I said last year that I would play through Resident Evil 4, and I didn't do that. I will admit that I didn't play through Resident Evil 4. The disc is in my PlayStation 4 right now, and I got further in it than I ever got before, but it just didn't work for me. And then, we have been spending, to say reporters, Sejohn, Zach, Dale, and I have been playing a lot of Destiny 2 because I don't know. I guess now's the time to play Destiny 2. That Anthem is coming out, so people are Anthem. I don't even want to talk about Anthem. And we were playing, and
Don't
Zach.
worry, we'll play it in 5 years when nobody else
Yeah,
is.
when it's free, when it's given away for free, and it's actually a complete game, not like a beta test.
Right.
But one of these times we were playing Destiny 2, Zach was like, I'm going to talk to you guys, but I'm playing Resident Evil 2, all right? Like, screw you guys and your little Destiny party.
And I fully supported his decision, by the way, Zach. Whatever Devon says, I fully support.
Well, I have to fully support his decision because that discussion that we had over the backdrop of Destiny 2 got me to hunt down a red box copy of Resident Evil 2, the remake that released on the 26th of January, and give it a try myself. And I beat it. It's the first Resident Evil game that I finished is Resident Evil 2 Remake, PS4.
If there wasn't a clear sign that this isn't really a remake, the fact that you played through and beat this game proves to me that this is more than just a remake of a game.
Yeah. And then I beat it as Claire, and then I beat it as Leon, and then I had to return it. And then I bought the game on Saturday. So I now own Resident Evil 2 Remake. I still have not completed a second story. I have only done that, but I have since beat the game twice more as Claire, and got S ranks both times.
You like that Claire story, huh?
No, it's not that I like that Claire story. It's that I bought the deluxe edition because I was able to get a really good deal on PlayStation Store credit. So it felt like, I can get the deluxe edition for literally the same price as the regular. And I wanted to play through as Elsa Walker. I wanted to play through as the original character that Claire was going to be in the game. Right. So I'm like, I'll just play that one. And, it was the Super Bowl, so I'm like, I'm not really committed to this. I'm just going to, play through and whatever. And then, I finished it in 2.5 hours. So I got the S rank. And then, you unlock a gun with unlimited bullets if you get an S rank in the game. So that I'm like, well, I want to test that out. I want to see what that's about. But I don't want to do that as Leon because it'll feel like cheating. So I loaded up another Claire game, and without having to worry about survival
a ridiculous
management,
but noble notion, I guess. Yeah. You don't have to worry about any of that shit. You didn't have to combine gunpowders. You didn't have to do shit.
Oh, I combined gunpowders, but I have a huge spoiler for Resident Evil 2 Remake. And maybe this happens in the original Resident Evil 2, but I know for a fact it happens in Resident Evil 2 Remake. If, as Claire, you do not go and get the grenade launcher, it is given to you in the first room of the nest. It's just sitting on the counter. Because, you're going to need this grenade launcher. love the developers of Resident Evil 2.
Hey, Dum Dum, you need this if you want to beat the game.
Yeah, like that's basically what it is. And the acid rounds that you don't find but that you can make and you can make real easily
Yeah.
in the nest, they do the most damage to everything.
Nice.
So I just I ended up finishing the game in an hour and 54 minutes.
That's phenomenal. That's awesome.
And I'm just like, well, I'm messing around, right? And I don't have to worry about bullets. So I'll try to do this ridiculous unlock where I don't use a health pickup the entire game.
Right.
So I beat the game without using any health stuff. And then and by the way, Devon, you're the coolest ever from the game. I beat it in under 14,000 steps.
They actually count that shit? That's amazing.
They count that shit, and that's another thing. Like it's called reducing your carbon footprint. So if you could beat the game in less than 14,000 steps, you unlock other stuff in the game as well.
Cool.
So I'm just like, geez. And you're right. Like there's no bigger evidence than this is not a straight remake of a Resident Evil game than the fact that I have played through it 4 times. And I'm excited to play through it a bunch more.
So you got to one of the craziest bosses in video game history, because apparently remaking that fucking alligator was a nightmare.
But you don't fight. Yeah, but the alligator fight is changed 100%.
Yeah.
Spoilers for Resident Evil 2.
I'm not surprised. No, I'm not surprised, because they legitimately came out and said we may have to delay the game because redoing this alligator is killing us. It was apparently a nightmare for them.
Yeah, it's completely changed, and that's actually a big complaint from people who played the original game. Is
God,
that
get over it, guys.
You changed,
so good.
You changed it, but how you deal with it, I dug it. I dug that moment. It felt more realistic to how you would have to deal with that situation. So yeah. I don't know. I don't know how it happened in the original, but I know that people are kind of bummed out about it. But it worked for me.
I would not be. Everything about that game is so well done, and I've only done the demo, and even then I couldn't get through it. So I haven't seen everything yet, but I am so excited to get my hands on that game once I get some of that Netflix cash.
Yeah, I'm excited for you, because you're a person who knows the game. You're not I feel like your brother had never played it before.
He had played some of it, but he has never been able to really. He has not cared about Resident Evil in the way that I cared about Resident Evil. So he has played it, but not at all from my lens. And I don't even know. You're right. I don't know if Resident Evil 2 is even one of the ones that he ever really sunk his teeth into. I do know that he was very well aware of a lot of the aspects of it before he picked it up, though. You are the only baby out of the 3 of us that is going to touch it, because I cannot imagine Dale has any interest. Does she?
I'm making Dale play it. I'm trying to get her to play it.
Okay. All right.
And the reason why, and this goes back to my birthday, which is it's kind of like a cool bookend, right, to my escape room birthday. I mean, all of the puzzles in Resident Evil 2 just feel like the level of what that escape room was. Is put all of our names in order based on how our desks are to open your desk, rookie. And I'm like, am I in the escape room right now? Did I never leave?
There's this hand that looks like it should be holding a thing, and this random thing I have. What should I do with these 2 things that I've gotten from? Oh, look at that. It fits in the hand.
Dude, my favorite part was that puzzle I just solved, and then later I found the film that reveals what the statue is supposed to look like, and I'm like, oh, that would have been helpful? Would that? would it have been? What? I don't. Was this worth it? I don't know. Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed my time with it, and I'm excited to actually get the true ending and everything. But I mean, finishing it tonight was not the plan, and then I was at the second William fight, and I'm like, oh, I'm almost done with this game.
Nice.
So
yeah, and you got that free DLC coming in a couple of weeks too.
yeah, right. So I need to finish everything so that I honestly feel like I did not think I could platinum this game. I will say that. I'm going to play this game, but now that like I've accomplished like some of the crazier stuff, really all I need to do is beat the game on hardcore as Claire and Leon. Like those are
Well,
going
and
to be the two hard ones for me.
and if you've already done it without using health and stuff like that, like really you got the rhythm down, you know?
Oh yeah,
Are you,
yeah.
you
Like that's
yeah, yeah, like
when I fought William the first time. I'm like, oh wow, that was easy. Like, you know what this game reminds me of, and you're gonna hit me. Everybody's gonna hit me at home right now. It's like Link to the Past. It really is. It reminds me of Link to the Past, and it's checking boxes for me that like Link to the Past does.
yeah,
And like what it really says to me is that the bones of these Resident Evil games are really good. Like they're really well built games. What
yeah.
I had to get past was the control scheme.
Hmm.
And that was my only hurdle. And the craziest part about that is that like you can't be running and shooting if you want your bullets to actually do damage.
Exactly. You've got to take the moment to
So they
aim
still
and
have me
yeah.
stopping to like when I shoot, but it's nice to have that option to be like running and lay down cover fire.
Right.
Like it's cool to like when I when I move the character, they're responsive to what I'm doing on the controller. So
Right.
I mean like to the point where like they gave away the original Resident Evil remake on PlayStation 4 because I have it. Right? I can't imagine that I paid for it, but it's something that I could download, and I feel like I'm gonna try that one, and like maybe I'll hate it, but
It's not going to be nearly as free feeling as this one. I guarantee
right.
you, man.
And that's why like hope of hopes that they come out with a Resident Evil 3 that is as free as this one. Because
Yeah.
I love the story of that game. I've just never been able to play it.
Yeah. For sure.
But yeah, so big shout out to Zach and to Sejohn for getting me to finally play a Resident Evil game.
I'm so excited.
All the poking and prodding. You guys are beautiful.
Glad to help, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good week overall.
It was
You
a
know,
really
despite
good
the misgivings at the start of this episode, I think we came to a good conclusion.
Well, I mean, not just misgivings. It's just that, like, even as fans of New England, like, there's a weird fatigue about it.
Yep.
So, you know. But that's it. Anything that you'd like to add before we,
No, I mean, like,
Close her
you know, I'm glad Zach made it home safe. We should say that this week. Glad you made it home safe, bud.
Yes, Zach. Welcome back. And we're glad that this trip was better than your last.
Yes, yes. No, man.
So if you want to yell at me about Resident Evil and why I should have liked it all along, I am on Twitter at Devon D. Decker.
And if you heard about anything at Sundance that you want to know some weird stuff about, because I was like, even though I didn't get into everything, I was in on all of it. You can hit me up at Siege vs. the World.
And until next time, let's throw it to our own little tight end. Will bring us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejohn Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.